Welcome to the Phillipsburg Jubilee Library. It's time for a story. Today, we're going to select a book that speaks about the life that we are living today. Today's story is entitled Andy and Elmer's Apple Dumpling Adventure, written and illustrated by Andrew J. Shoup. The book is dedicated in memory of his mother, Rosemary W. Shoup, the original apple dumpling baker. It was a beautiful morning as Andy sat beneath his neighbor's apple tree. What should I do today, he thought. Suddenly, an apple fell from the tree and plunked him in the head. Ouch! He shouted, and then he picked up the apple and inspected it. I know, I will make apple dumplings. Andy proceeded to pick several apples, as much as he could carry, and then it was off to the kitchen. He spent the rest of the morning and early afternoon in the kitchen, peeling and coring, rolling and wrapping. It was certainly a big job, but Andy absolutely loved making apple dumplings. It was evening when Andy sat down to have an apple dumpling for dinner. There are many ways to eat apple dumplings, but Andy preferred just pouring milk over the top. These sure are good, if I say so myself, he stated. But they sure are filling. He looked over to the counter at his full day's work. There's no way I'm going to be able to eat all of these, he thought. I have an idea. Maybe I could sell them. Andy's apple dumpling. Is it the truth? Andy was all excited. He hopped up, ran over to his drawing table, and started sketching a label. I'll call them Andy's apple dumplings. Andy was proud of his great idea. Is it the truth? A voice suddenly came out of nowhere. Andy was startled. Who's there? He looked around frantically, but there was no one around. Andy scratched a bit more. Is it the truth? Came the voice again. Again, Andy looked around. But there was no one to be seen. Then he stopped, and then he looked at his label. Well, he thought, I suppose it's not entirely the truth. I mean, I made them, but they're not my apples. You see, they came from his neighbor, Elmer. It was his apple tree. Is it fair to all concerned? Came the voice again. Andy wasn't quite so startled this time. It's not fair to Elmer, he thought. And then Andy had an inspiration. Knock, knock, knock. There was someone at Elmer's door. Elmer opened the door to find Andy standing there, his arms full of apple dumplings. Andy and Elmer sat down at his table and enjoyed a late night snack. I am sorry, Elmer, Andy began. I should have asked for your your permission before taking your apples. Oh, don't worry about it, Elmer replied. These are awfully delicious. Thank you for sharing them with me. Say, Elmer, I have an idea. Elmer was listening, slurping at the bottom of the bowl. How would you like to be my partner? You know, your apples are baking and we split the profits. Sounds terrific, Elma said, but only if you let me help you and teach me how to bake too. Deal, said Elma, and he shook on it. They spent another hour or so just talking, getting to know one another better, and later, as Andy was walking home, is it building goodwill and better friendships? The voice was back. Why, yes, it is, Andy said to himself. It is indeed. The next day, Andy and Elmer got an early start on their new adventure. Elmer mannered the ladder, picking the apples while Andy gathered strays. Then they were off to the kitchen, where Andy showed Elmer step by step how to make apple dumplings. From peeling and coring to the dough making, to the sugar and cinnamon mixing, to the rolling and the wrapping. The next day, Andy and Elmer got on an early start on their new venture. Elmer manned the ladder, picking the apples while Andy gathered strays. Then they were off to the kitchen, where Andy showed Elmer step by step how to make apple dumplings. From the peeling and the coring, to the dough making, to the sugar and the cinnamon mixing, to the rolling and wrapping, and finally the baking. Elma had no idea it was such hard work, but the aroma of the apples and the cinnamon was reward enough for him. It was about midnight when they put the label on the last package. Well, that should do it, said Andy. But how are we going to get all of these to the market in the morning? asked Elma. You got a point there, Elma. And Andy was puzzled. Bang chakalaka chum chum chakalaka bam. Hey, I know that song, said Andy. And he and Elma ran outside. Sure enough, it was Becky in her old beat-up pickup truck. What is that heavenly smell? Becky asked as she pulled up. Oh, it's our apple dumplings, Andy replied. Elmer and I are going into business together. Well, if they taste as good as they smell, you two are going to be rich, she proclaimed. Say, Becky, began Elmer, could you help us haul all of these apple dumplings to the market in the morning? That's a great idea, Andy chimed in. Is it beneficial to all concerned? Sure, if you wouldn't mind giving me a few, she said. Suddenly, the voice returned. Is it beneficial to all concerned? Andy noticed that neither Elmer nor Becky seems to hear the voice. We can do better than that, stated Andy. How about we cut you in on the profits? Yes, yes, agreed Elmer. Deal, said Becky, and they all shook on it. The next day was incredible. Not only did Andy and Elmer sell all of the apple dumplings, but they had orders for many, many more. In fact, in the days to come, their venture became so prosperous that Elmer now runs an arcade, Becky oversees a fleet of trucks, and Andy has 32 bakers working with him. And to this day, Andy still isn't quite sure where that mysterious voice came from. Although now he feels that it was simply the voice from inside of him, guiding him along the way. And if you ever visit Andy's kitchen, you'll find posters on the refrigerator, those 4 little questions to help guide everyone along their way. 1. Is it the truth? 2. Is it fair to all concerned? 3. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be 4? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? The end. But before we go, boys and girls, I would like to give you the recipe. Andy's apple dumplings. The ingredients on how to make the dough. 2 cups of flour. 1 teaspoon of salt. 3/4 cup of Crisco shortenings. 5 tablespoons of cold water for the dumplings. 4 golden delicious apples, medium size. 1 cup of sugar. 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. 3 cups of water and 1/4 cup of margarine. Butter. 1. Make some pie dough. If you're currently having a favorite recipe, feel free to use that. If not, you can use this one. Preheat the oven to 425 Fahrenheit. Mix flour and salt in a bowl. Cut in shortening using pastry blender until all flour is just blended into forms pea-sized chunks. Sprinkle water 1 tablespoon at a time. Toss lightly with fork until dough will form a ball. Divide dough into 4 balls. 2. Mix the sugar and cinnamon in a bowl. Set it aside. 3. Core and peel the apples. 4. Roll out one of the balls of dough. Place an apple in the center of the dough. Spoon some of the sugar and cinnamon mixture into the empty core of the apple. Fill it all the way to the top. Fold the dough up, completely wrapping the apple. Place the apple into a well-greased baking dish. Repeat this for each apple. When you have all of the apple dumplings in the pan, sprinkle some cinnamon onto each one. 5. Pour water into a pan. Add margarine and the remainder of the sugar-cinnamon mixture. Heat this on the stove and stir often, bringing it to a boil. Pour this over each apple dumpling until it's up halfway from the bottom of the pan. Place them in the oven and bake for about 30 to 45 minutes. Oven varies, so watch them. Crust should be a golden brown. Enjoy. And remember, boys and girls, that the test was adopted by the Rotary International in 1943 and since has been translated in more than 100 languages. It asks for 4 powerful questions of things we think, say, and do. 1. Is it the truth? 2. Is it fair to all concerned? 3. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? 4. Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Boys and girls, come back next week when it's time for a story. Thank you for listening. Do have a wonderful Saturday. Enjoy.